Well, hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. So here we are at the beautiful Gibson's Marina, and I would just like to talk about, here we are back on the shark subject again. I would just like to talk about two documentaries specifically. I would like to talk about Jaws, The Shark is Still Working documentary, as well as the making of Jaws, behind the scenes documentary. Now, both of these documentaries are, actually I'd say, the best documentaries I've seen in a really long time. I really got captivated with watching these ones, and especially Jaws, The Shark is Still Working. It is all about the legacy and impact of Jaws. It's all about how it became such a cultural phenomenon. It goes on about all the artwork that's came out over the years, from all the shirts that different people have had to all of the different people are getting tattoos nowadays of Jaws. It's been incorporated into almost every kind of merchandising aspect, everything from wallets to shirts to belts, tattoos, to all that kind of stuff pertaining to Jaws, which I find very cool. It obviously, it truly means that the movie was a very, it was a heavy impact on the culture at the time. It goes into the troubled production of Jaws and how it was a very, very hard movie to make. It goes into how if Spielberg were the age he was then now, or had the technology of nowadays been around then, Jaws would not have been a very good movie, and it would not have been the same movie. It almost would have been ruined because there would have been too much shark. A lot of the creative decisions in the movie of not showing the shark that much, and stuff like the barrels and all of that were not in some of the scenes of dialogue and all that were not originally supposed to be what you went away with from the movie. That was, it was supposed to be a monster movie. You were originally supposed to see the shark all the time. And Spielberg talks about how that would have essentially ruined Jaws. And to me, anyway, the troubled production of Jaws really just goes to show how talented of an artist and filmmaker Steven Spielberg is. I mean, everything was against this guy. Everything was, working in the opposite direction from what he had in mind, and he still managed to craft this beautiful film out of it, a timeless film. And it also goes in, it interviews all of the actors and all of the production and all of the people involved in the movie. At least the ones that are around anyway, and it has the last footage taken of a lot of the people that were involved in this movie before they had passed on, incorporated into this movie, incorporated into this documentary. It talks about how Martha's Vineyard was where they shot this movie, and how they used a lot of the locals. Like, that's how it makes sense, like these small coastal towns like that, as you can see right where I am. A lot of times those quirky character moments and those politics of the town and how it operates and stuff like that is very real, because a lot of these people were real locals from this place. It talked about how there was, not that long ago, there was a legitimate shark spotted in Martha's Vineyard, which was, and everybody welcomed it. It wasn't like this terrible thing. Everybody welcomed it. It was actually a cool occurrence because, and there was a local marine biologist that actually studies there, either lives there or just studies there, one of the two, but either way, operates there frequently. And he has been studying the sea life in this territory for a long time, and it was a very, very unique and interesting moment for him to have been able to study this great white shark on Martha's Vineyard, the site of Jaws. And it really delved into everything that took place during the time and since of Jaws release, and I just found it a very, very interesting documentary, and I found it very enlightening. I really liked diving into this, because, as you know, it's a film that is very, very important to me, and it's one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's one of those movies that has always been a highlight in just my overall experience with movie making and stuff like that in general. And it covers pretty much everything there is to talk about. It has Steven Spielberg giving his take on it. It has all the actors giving their take on it, all the production, the locals of the town, the locals they used for the movie. I found it funny how it says in the documentary, the woman, the local actually, who played Alex Kittner's mother, the mother of the kid who gets killed by the shark tragically on the beach. There's a famous scene where she slaps Chief Brody, and apparently in the making of this movie they had to take a lot of takes. Like, I think it was like 20 or 30 or like 27, so like in between 20 to 30 anyway. From what I remember them talking about, maybe more or less or whatever, but around then anyway, they had to do of this take to get it right. And so that's funny in general and kind of interesting in general, but also to this day she still gets, and she said mainly young men fans, she says, but still to this day people constantly that, you know, are visiting this town as, you know, celebration for Jaws. It goes into how this how she's to this day been told to slap people across the face. Like, people want her to slap them across the face. Like, to this day she always gets young men asking her to slap her across the face. And it shows Jaws Fest in the town that this takes place in. They had a very, very commemorative Jaws festival, a big barbecue, big dinner, everything Jaws themed, all the locals, modern and old from the time, coming back to reunite and hanging out and playing music and eating food and, you know, breaking bread, having a good time, everything Jaws themed, of course. And so yeah, I just found it a really, really interesting documentary, and it was definitely one of the best ones I've seen in a long time, and as somebody who's very interested in this movie and filmmaking in general, I'd highly recommend it as a filmmaking documentary, and I definitely give Jaws, The Shark is Still Working documentary an A+. Now let's just talk quickly about the making of Jaws. Now this is just the basic special features on a Blu-ray disc, but it is it's just really cool because it has old footage. It has old footage of the time of when Steven Spielberg was making Jaws, and then it splices it in with newer interviews. Same with all the actors talking about their time on Jaws and the different politics that went on between the actors, especially Richard Dreyfuss as Hooper and Robert Shaw as Quint. It talks about the malfunctioning of the shark, and how it was also talking about that, and The Shark is Still Working, but how a lot of the more creative scenes and sequences in the movie were created due to a lack of technology and a lack of working parts for the shark to pull off the scenes that they originally wanted to do. It talks about how the old, about the two different, about how troubling it was to film on sea in the two different orca boats. They had the one that was it was just a prop, it was meant to wobble up and down, particularly near the end when the shark smashes the boat and Brody's on the mast and the boat is sinking down like that. They designed a specific boat for that, but they did have a legitimate orca boat. And it was a very, very troubling process filming on the water, how they would constantly, they were struggling to not film land because Spielberg did not want it to seem like if in real need these characters could just go to shore, kind of a thing. There was, waves and weather and wind, wind affecting the sound, and, of course, when you're at sea, weather can change at any time, and the seas can change at any time. And how it was in and incredibly hard because there were sailboats always coming through, like other boats always coming through the shot, and they had to stop all the time, shark malfunctioning. It was basically a similar documentary as The Shark Is Still Working, but The Shark Is Still Working went into a lot more detail of the whole cultural phenomenon from old to new to do with Jaws. So I'd give The Making of Jaws still really good, but not an A+. I'll give that one an A. And I'm going to continue on with... I've reviewed a lot of shark movies already. I went through a little bit of phase of that before, but I'm going to continue on with this whole shark talk thing, as it's just something that connects with me very well. And I am going to read a book. It's not the original Jaws book, but I'm going to read a book that came with the Blu-ray box set. I always try and pick up these interesting box sets of movies that I really like. Not any ones, but movies that I really like. I try and pick up these interesting box sets. So that's that. And yeah, so I'm going to read that book on camera for another edition of Shark Talk, and it was a pleasure doing this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the talk, and here we are at beautiful Gibson's Harbor, very similar to the harbor in Jaws. Thank you very much, everybody.